Bonjour, Kinamagi and Ireland edition of Cas, and welcome to this production of the My Math Network. Today's episode, Chapter 6, Lesson 12, use models to divide decimals. The essential question in Chapter 6 remains, how is multiplying and dividing decimals similar to multiplying and dividing whole numbers? And the conclusion we're working on reaching is that the algorithms are the same. The difference is, where do I put my decimal point? You will need your packet. So if you do not have your packet, you should go and grab it, as it will be very useful to you during this lesson. Oops. And that packet begins on page 449. The expectation is that you'll fill this in as you watch the video. If at any point you're going too fast, or I'm going too fast, you can pause the video to finish writing things in, and then unpause the video when you're ready. When we get to the independent practice, I will ask you to pause the video at times to do your solution and then come back. If you have base 10 blocks available, they are very useful today for this lesson. If you, like me, don't have them laying around your room, you can draw them out, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. So let's go into the book on page 449. How many groups of 8/10 are in 2.4? And this is not unfamiliar to you at this point. We start with a model showing 2.4. A square represents 1, whereas when we did whole numbers, it was 100. This is a 1 now. And then we have another one, 2. And then my 4/10, and the long pieces that we looked at as 10 as whole numbers are tenths as decimals. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4/10. We have that. Since we were dividing by tenths, 0.8, we have to replace both of the wholes with tenths. So how many tenths do we have now? Well, how many tenths are in 1? Page, niche, this way, niwen, nanan, a good wasway, niche wasway, niche wasway, jongsway, madasa way. So there are 10, 20, and 24. I'll let that answer it for me. So each hole has 10 tenths. So now total, we have 24 tenths. Make sure you write those numbers in real quick before we move on. Just the 10 and the 24. And then we will move forward here. This is still on your same page, but on different screen for me. How many groups of 8/10 are in 2.4? So we could start separating them. And one way I would do it is to start drawing them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. And you now see that I have 3 groups. There are none left over. So 2 and 4/10 divided by 8/10 is 3. And as always, you can check your work using multiplication or the inverse operation, no matter what you're doing. The opposite of division is multiplication. 0.8 times 3. 8 times 3 is 24. There's 1 digit after the decimal place. So it becomes 2.4. Go ahead and write those down. And then we'll move to the top of the next page, 450. Give you about another 15 seconds to finish writing that in and or drawing. Sure, it's important to write these things in. That way you have a resource to go back to. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and clear the drawing now. And anytime I clear the drawing, if you're like, oh, Mr. I needed another 3 seconds, just rewind the video. It works. We're doing this asynchronously right now. So how many groups were there? We already did that. Oh, sorry, let's move forward this way. You see their drawing of it. I could have drawn in a couple different ways, but that was the easiest for me. So let's try one. Now this one's going to get a little tougher. How many groups of 600ths are in 3/10? And you can see here, my 3/10 are shaded in using the hundreds block. So how many hundredths are in 3/10? Now, if you have a decile in each, so you get 3 groups of that, you have 30. Now I could separate these into groups of 600ths. And if I was drawing these out, start with them, Basic Nation this way, Niwan Nan and Do Good this way, and then keep doing it until I get to 30. And that will leave me with 5 groups with none left over. So my quotient would be 5. We're just using smaller pieces. The skill stays the same. So go ahead and make sure these are drawn in. I would draw copies of these pictures so that you could kind of reference back to it. I'll give you about 45 seconds to do that. If you need more time than that, feel free to pause the video. Just keep in mind that each of these little blocks are hundredths. The whole column of 10 hundredths is a tenth, and 10 columns of tenths is a whole. All right, let's move forward here and talk about it. And this one we'll kind of discuss. If you see the pattern, 24 divided by 8 is 3. 2.4 divided by 0.8 is 3. 3.6 divided by 0.9 was 4, and 36 divided by 9 was 4. What you're seeing is that the non-zero digits give us the same quotient. The only thing that differs is the presence of the decimal point. Using that same rule, 4.8 divided by 0.8, without using models, I could move my decimal point one spot to the right in both by multiplying by both sides by 10 and get 48 divided by 8. And my math facts, I remember 48 is 8 times 6. So there's my plan. All right, you have a couple to practice. You're going to use models. I want you to do numbers 3 and 5. When you do these, you're going to pause the video, and then you're going to solve them, and then you're going to unpause your video and come back to check your answers. Numbers 3 and 5, you may pause the video now. Welcome back. Let's see what we got here. On number 3, a very similar problem to the one we did in the build it stage. We had 24 tenths divided by 3 tenths, so each group of 3 tenths, and you see there are 8. And then down here, 1/10 is going to be 10 hundredths. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Let's try one more example here and do number 7. You can pause the video now. Welcome back. Let's see how you did. 27 hundredths divided into groups of 3 hundredths would give you 9 groups. At this point, I think you're ready to move on to the homework. There will be a Google form in the post for this, and you have a couple options for submission. You could put your name on top and bottom, the top of each page, and then send me a picture or a scan of both sides. And the paper falling there. To mireland@sagchipschool.net or 989-750-1640. That's one option. Or you can do it in the Google form, and they're the exact same problems. I even cut and paste this into there so you're seeing the same reference. I always look at the homework helper first, as it's kind of a quick review of what we just talked about. You should draw the models for numbers 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we'll come back and go over it manana. Hope you all have a minogijigad, minwa, bamapi.